Welcome to Voices in Hyperspace. We're a group of friends that get together to talk all things sci-fi. Our current mission is to watch and review the 90s sci-fi hit series, Babylon 5. I'm Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Captain Well Asylum.
Hey y'all, this is Sunday.
Today we're looking at Sick Transit Vir. The way that I want to describe this episode, it is absolutely not a filler episode, but it is kind of like a side mission, you know? We got a lot of our main characters doing a lot of their stuff. However, Mr. Garibaldi is missing in this episode, and so is Franklin.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing with Ivanova, that she's actually doing her job, and it's great. Like, she's good at her job, too. In fact, this is like early season 3 Ivanova, maybe early season 2 Ivanova, where she's like running the station, and she just really doesn't care to get involved in people's personal stuff, and then she's thrust into it. So I thought that was pretty cool. We get to see our friend Zach again. We'll discuss him. He used for a very specific purpose. I think they used him because Garibaldi would have been way too overkill for what they were doing with him, and it's like, no, let's use Zach. He actually is kind of a good character for this position. Then we get to see some main characters interact that we thought, okay, this was gonna happen, and today on this episode, it happens. So that's kind of like my quick little teaser of it. Y'all got anything that y'all are kind of excited about to talk about for this episode?
The social issue? Oh.
Yes.
Yep, there wasn't much more going on other than that, so let's get it.
Along with the social issues, we got some psychological issues going on. The show opens up with Ivanova walking into CNC, and everybody's looking at her like super surprised. And she's talking about, oh man, you know, we got more and more transits coming in. It's not as much as it was before, but we're getting close. You know, it's better than nothing. And everybody's just like stopped, dumbfounded, slack-jawed, slobber mouth, looking at her. And she's like, what the deal? What's the deal? And she looks down and she's like, oh shoot, I'm naked.
The amount of like shock and shame in the look of the female officer when Ivanova wasn't understanding, like, what's the problem? And then the female officer looked like, oh, she is not aware. And then she looked embarrassed for her. It was an interesting way to communicate it. Like, just say something instead of this dumb deer in the headlight kind of situation. Usually,
I don't know. If that had happened, would I say something? Or would I be in the right mind to say something? I guess it depends on who it is, especially. And then it is a dream. It's not supposed to like make conscious sense. So what people would logically do in real life isn't the metaphorical manifestation of the scenario that happens within a dream. The scenario that happens in a dream is reflected on what your subconscious is trying to process. So them being dumbfounded is probably an example of her being dumbfounded about her situation, because it was all about her not knowing what her true role was now that the place where she has a role has completely changed.
when she had the conversation with the captain, I think, were they over at dinner or they were having a conversation somewhere?
They were having like
Lunch or something?
Yeah, they were eating together.
Yeah, and I really liked how he translated her dream. A lot of times when I have dreams and then you talk to people about them, it's not often that you find somebody who really can like make some sense and try to give you some guidance on, like, you know, what your subconscious might have been doing and what's going on in your life and how to kind of steer and direct dreams and things. But the way he broke that down for her, and it was like, well, we had a path, and you know, since we left Earth, it's, you know, all up in the air and you just don't know where you are. And she's like, I dealt with all that shit. It's like, well, but have you had, you would still be dreaming about being naked.
So Ivanova wakes up screaming from the nightmare. She had the shown up to work naked dream. Then we switch to Vir, and he's on Centauri Prime. He's messing around in the Emperor's throne room, touching stuff. And then what's his name? Minister Milo, he comes in and Vir is like super anxious, like, oh, I didn't do anything, I didn't touch anything. Well, maybe some of the drapes. They're trying to depict Vir as being a little manic, a little bit. To me, that's kind of coded. Definitely anxiety, social anxiety, especially for his society that he's in. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, what is his neurodiversity? Is it ADHD or is it more on the autism spectrum? I'm not 100% sure. Whatever's going on with him, he's built to resist the Centauri.
Yeah. Or maybe the Centauri have their own forms of neurodivergence.
Oh, they absolutely do, because later in the episode, Londo makes a comment about Vir's behavior, and I'm like, wow, that is so interesting that he's using these words. But Minister Milo is like, hey, we've got your reports. We're just going to tell you, like, everything is good. He's like, oh, I'm glad that you like them. Do you have any, was he asking for, like, pointers or whatever?
What did he say?
Yeah, he's like, so he was like, what do you think? And Milo was like, well, it appears that some of your reports have been assisted by Ambassador Mollari. And Vera's like, yeah, he helped me out on a little bit. He's like, yeah, it's clear. It clearly looks like he did this. And then this is where we get where the Centaurum thinks about him, about Londo. He's like, Londo is from the old school. He thinks we need to be protected from the truth. We don't do that shit no more. In these perilous times, we need you to be as accurate as possible. Follow your own judgment to tell us the truth. So it's like, hey, Vir, like that old school flubbing on reports, just make sure that you are just tell us the truth. We need accurate information. We also have to remember that the Centauri have moved away from the shadows for a little bit. So maybe they're like, hey, maybe we need to stop playing this little game that everything is all nice and shiny. Maybe we need to see if we piss some people off. And basically they're telling them, like, hey, Vir, you're gonna go back to Babylon 5. Everything's gonna be great. And then Verini, he tells a dumb joke. It's not just dumb, but it's gross and disgusting and racist. And the joke is, what's more dangerous than a locked room full of angry Narns? And Vera is like, this is weird. And he goes, what? And Verini is like, an angry Narn with the key. And Vir, he thinks about it. He's like, oh, is that it? And then he humors Verini with the laugh. And then he leaves. And then Vir goes into a room. He opens the door. And it's full of angry Narn. And he turns and closes the door. And one of the Narn appears to have the key. And I'm like, I understand foreshadowing, but what is like when you first see this episode, like what is going on here? Like,
that's exactly what I thought. I had to do a double take. I'm like, is he okay? Did he just go into a room full of Narn? But having the understanding of what is happening, it really irritates me that he is clearly not okay with what his species is doing to another race of aliens. But when he is faced with situations where he could at least speak up and, say that, like, no, that's not okay. I don't appreciate that. Even if we are, colonizing the hell out of these people, we don't have to, be rude or disrespectful in this moment. Like, don't do that around me or anything, nothing. He just laughs or turns his head or just does not defend the Narn in any kind of way. Don't like it, man.
Well, I feel like if he didn't play along, he wouldn't have his position where he could save 2,000 Narn lives. And that's I think they took that straight out of like maybe some of the white people who helped during
during
the Underground Railroad. Yeah, they had to like keep face because they knew how crazy them people were.
That's kind of what I pulled from it too. There were like various points in history where there are part of the privileged class that helped out runaway slaves, and not just in America, but like in different parts of the world, because they are pulling from different pieces of history to depict some of these characters as the most disgusting people in the galleys. Yeah.
It's like we're spanning across a lot of time, from in the midst of all the shit, and he is talking to a higher ranking officer or person and, in need of protecting himself. I understand all that. It just, it's a lot, and it's frustrating to know the position that he has, and like the 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 lack of ability that he has to stand up more, whether he wants to or not, is agitating.
I'll add to that. I feel like I've been in that position, being neurodivergent and working with neurodivergent kids, and the staff above me who makes more of the decisions on what happens to them, not being neurodivergent, not understanding. When I try to advocate for my students in a way that they don't understand, I get looked at like I'm crazy or like I don't know how to do my job because I'm not doing it the way they would do it. So in order to, at the time, not just a paycheck, but be able to be in a position to advocate, I kind of have to pick my battles and do what I can and save face, really, because like if I just blow up on them and tell them no, you're straight up wrong, then I look like I can't do my job and I get fired or removed or something, and then I can't do anything.
Yeah, both of y'all touching on some of the deeper parts of the episode. Please keep that in mind. We'll bookmark it because it's going to come back and I want to dig into that conversation. We come back and Ivanova is breaking down her nightmare to Sheridan. They're having breakfast together, and Sheridan attributes it to transitioning to independence and suggests that she just needs to be patient because they are in unfamiliar territory. And one thing he points out that I thought was really kind of interesting, he says, we are military and we define ourselves by what we do. I just wanted to highlight that because there are some people who want to regiment society like the military, and they want to reduce people to the jobs that they have. And you just can't do that because there are people who can't work. They can't do like conventional labor, whether they are physically abled or if they have neurodiversity that prevents them from being in labor type jobs like that.
Identifying people by what job they have is very limiting to their individuality. Like, people are more than their job or more than what the money that they make.
Yeah. And so Ivanova has internalized this, and this is where she's running into some of her conflicts. I just thought that part was interesting. Sheridan says you feel vulnerable, you feel lost and exposed, but your subconscious doesn't know what's going on, and that's obvious and understandable. You just need to work it out. Which, wow, Sheridan, thank you for being the worst counselor ever. Like, oh yeah, your subconscious is just figuring it out. Like, it sounds like magic when you say it like that, but it's not. It's it's real work.
Yeah, that reminds me of how the difference between Babylon 5 and Star Trek, where Star Trek has actual counselors and mental health professionals, and they just chat with each other during lunch.
Yeah, they do like the hardest therapy sessions while they're eating, and 100 people are around them in the mess hall.
And then sometimes they're taking advice from Garibaldi.
Yeah. Right. And then Sheridan is like, he basically say, hey, it was a good thing you didn't dream about going to work naked. Otherwise, you'd be in real trouble. Which I'm pretty sure he put it together he put her dream together, and he's just ribbing her right now, and she's definitely not enjoying that, right?
I thought that his breakdown of her dream was, spot on to the condition of, her not being dressed, even though she didn't specifically say that to him. So to think that, he knew, but he's just joking with her, because I was like, well, when he said you'd be in real trouble if you didn't have on clothes, I took that seriously. Like, well, what other kinds of insights would you have if you had that bit of information? But, they're going to be
Yeah.
a little naive. He was just joking.
I mean, well,
Or
go ahead.
like also a lot of people do a lot of what do you call it, reflecting when they put their selves onto other people. And
Yeah.
it makes
Oh,
more
yeah.
sense with those two because they are actually going through the same thing.
Yeah.
But maybe he's trying to say that that's the dream he had.
And they did change uniforms, so maybe there's a lot that's going in there. And this is kind of the contrast of the whole military being your job and being who you are. She was not dressed. It could be her dealing with the conflict of her being away from Earth Force. Earth Gov and Earth Force were very familiar and a secure place for her. And showing up to work without that could be a sense of insecurity. Like, we don't like, again, we don't know what's going to happen. So, and like I said, Sheridan ribs her. She doesn't like that at all. It's all play for comedy. We switch and we see a scene that I think took way too long as Mollari chasing a bug, and he ends up stabbing the bug with like his is a
Sword.
with the sword that he's killed his best friend with. And this bug looks disgusting, by the way. It's like a chunk with a bunch of legs. I don't know. I'm wondering if they were like, we just need to fill this episode up with a little bit, because that scene meant nothing. Like it.
I disagree. It goes to show what a piece of shit he is, that you are even in fear of like spiders and beetles and shit that are helping you. Without spiders and beetles and bugs, our world would be overcome with, death and destruction and nastiness, because they eat up all the things. And then some of the spiders are killing some of the bugs that if they bit you, then that might hurt you. And it's a circle of like mutual benefit for one another. But he don't see that. He's only absorbed and focused on himself, and that he's creeped out by something that got more legs than him. But ain't nobody, tripping that you got 6 penises, my boy. Like, oh, see, hold on. I hate him so much.
Yeah, and he said the only species he likes with 8 legs is the one that's bad at cards. So I just wanted to take advantage of people.
Yeah. It could be also the way, like, how trivial he treats life that's not Centauri. He's very disturbed by this bug, this creature. To him, it's a nuisance, and then he kills it. He's like, wait a minute, there's more of you. And then you contrast that with the way that he treats Narn life, and also the way that this character we're about to meet discusses Narn life. It's like, maybe that's it's supposed to be a comical way, but it also kind of reflects, like, we kind of look at everybody this way. You're all roaches between our feet. We just need to crush you. I don't know.
Yeah, and not just the way they talk about the Narn, but he was nasty about the Minbari. The Minbari ain't do nothing to you.
Yeah.
And then even with his assistant, to put it in his report, his input on Vir's report was just unnecessarily racist too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Like you didn't even have to have any issue with them. They're just not you. So you gotta talk bad about them. He's so insecure.
Yeah.
Right?
So we soon meet a young lady, a young Centauri woman. She's basically going to be Vir's wife. Her name is Lindisty. I don't know. But she shows up, and this is kind of his thing. His mood drastically improves when she arrives because he's like, oh, geez, another Centauri and a woman. Yes. So Sheridan and Delenn, they're walking in the Zocalo. And before I talk about what they're talking about, thought that this scene was great because they're panning through and it's like all these other characters are doing stuff in the foreground, right? Near the end of their walk, there's this black lady who's looking at an alien, and she makes this like bright-eyed surprise look like she won something, and then they just cut away from her, and I'm like, what? Wait a minute, what's going on in this table? It made me think of Sunday playing poker. She got a good man and she won, because that's what it looked like. It didn't look like it looked like she won a game. So I don't know if you ever watch this episode again and you get a little bored, watch the people around Delenn and Sheridan, because they like those are some good actors, because they all stood out to me. Anyway, Sheridan talks about how long this is the longest time that it's been quiet. President Clark is busy with stuff at home, so Babylon 5 is not a top priority. And this is, it always seems that when we're together, there's always something crazy happening. And right now, there's no better time. We should go out on a date. He's like, we should see each other. And Delenn turns into a 12-year-old. You can see me right now. Because I believe that these two adults know that they like each other. And she just turns into like this coy, I don't know what it is, but she whatever her thing is, it's supposed to come across as cute. And just kind of feigning naivete about it, but like they agree to go out on a date, and they're going out tonight.
Part of it feels like she's like playing because she's also got a crush on him, but part of it is also just the language barrier.
Yeah.
But she's flirting with the idea that she doesn't understand the language.
Yeah. She only acts like that with Sheridan too. She feels safe with him, so yeah, she's in love with him, right? She's in love with him right now.
Lanier has already told us.
Before they leave, Sheridan shares this comment. He goes, hey, there's a human saying that we eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And she's like, humans are so depressing. Like, and I think she's being genuine. That sounds like you're dying. Like, why are you doing that?
Well, I mean, with their situations, yeah, they are about to die.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of dying, where's Garibaldi? Anyway, so Vir visits Mollari's quarters, and it's funny because Londo is at the door, and his like ear is up to the door. He knows that Vir's coming, and he hurries up and jumps down on his bench, pulls up a paper. Yes, they are reading newspapers in space, like physical newspapers. And he's pretending that he's not excited about Vir's return. This is kind of Londo's tough love approach to trying to teach Vir of how to be a proper Centauri in the Republic. And so he's not like, hey, I'm happy to see you. He's like, hey, you're back from your job. Yes. Tell me all about it. And Vera's like, collusion, scheming, innuendo, politicking, the normal. Because he was just on Centauri Prime. And I don't think Vir was saying that as like a compliment. He was saying like, this bullshit was happening all the time, and I'm glad to be away from it. And then there's some tension regarding Mollari's actions back home. Basically, it's like, hey, you need to chill out on like helping me with these reports because everybody don't like your help. And then Londo is like, hey, well, did anything interesting happen? I don't know about y'all. When I hear somebody say that, I'm like, for sure you got some stuff to say. So why don't you just say it? And of course, Vir's like, nothing interesting happened. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is where he's like, well, I have a surprise for you. And Vir's like, what? He goes, why, your wife, of course. And this is where Londo introduces Vir to Lindisty and explains like, yeah, y'all have a marriage that's arranged. And Vir looks like he's having 2 heart attacks at the same time. Because it's like, I've never met this woman. How are we getting married? Like tomorrow? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Like that's not how y'all do things on your planet.
Right.
But I know it is possible to marry without it being arranged. But like they wouldn't arrange the marriage, they tell him.
Well, because what Linda she says that Vir's uncle and her mother arranged the marriage, which I don't even I'm pretty sure Vir knows his uncle, but he don't like them. He don't like nobody in his family.
No.
And they're like, they thought that this would be an advantageous arrangement. Lindesty expresses that she's impressed by Vir's rising importance, being an envoy to Minbar. And Vir is like, I really don't understand what is going on. Mollari, of course, is not helpful. He's trying to ease Vir's anxiety. He's like, yeah, this will be a great arranged marriage. You should be proud of yourself or whatever. Lindesty says that Londo told her everything about Vir. And the thing is, when she says that, Vir looks at Londo like, no, you didn't say. Like, his face is priceless. It looks like he's about to die right then and there. It's death by embarrassment. And Londo brushes all of that aside. He doesn't care. He has Vir and Lindsay to help him find and eliminate this cockroach that's been floating around. He's like, let me know if you find it, because I need to destroy it before they develop language. Yeah, that was his thing. The Centauri are eugenicists. I'm gonna just straight point that out right now. They are eugenicists. They have rocket science, but they pay attention to pseudoscience as well. It's disgusting. So
yeah, that's interesting how people do that.
Vir expresses that he wants to, if he's gonna get married, he's gonna get married for love, and Lindesty calls him a radical.
This goes amazing though. In the first 5 minutes of their meeting, I was like, yo, they got her groomed bad as hell. Like, she was really doing a great job with showing understanding and concern of who and what he was, what his wants and desires were, how she was going to prove to him that even though we might not be in love now, I'm a bad, bad bitch and you gonna love me by the time we walk up under them swords to the altar. I was like, yo, she cold with it. I could see her getting married. Like, she gonna make it happen.
Her behavior reminded me of love bombing.
Oh yeah.
'Cause she says everything perfectly and it just rolls off like nothing. It's scary because she is slightly creepy. Kind of creepy. But it's like, I can say all the perfect things and I'm going to woo you to death. And because everything's going to be so perfect.
That's right. Because she promises Vir, like, hey, you're going to fall in love with me. Don't worry about none of that stuff. You're going to be, when you marry me, it will be for love. It also reminds me of Coming to America. What do you like to do? Whatever you like.
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
That's where that grooming thing comes in. Like, you were trained to do this.
Right.
Like, she was trained to do that.
Because during their, like, get to know you date, he's trying to figure out, like, how much she knows about him. And she's basically forward about it. She's like, look, all the stuff about this marriage has already been done. You ain't really got to talk to me. All the important stuff is done. The only thing that ain't been done is the stuff between you and me. In other words, we need to hop in that bed and make this official. Like, that's on her mind.
Let me whoop this Gina magic on you. Let's go.
And Vir is like, I don't know about all that. And this is the part that y'all are talking about. This is where she's laying it on thick for him. She's like, no, you need to understand. You will be the logical conclusion of my happy thoughts. She is like, oof.
Yeah, that's a really elegant way of saying, let me put this pussy on you.
Hold on. She says, and the borders of my world will be circumspect by your two arms.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
she's
that part.
Yeah. And then she just like, he's trying to throw this like flowery, awkward language on him. And then she's like, do you find me pretty? And he just like busts out like, deliriously so. But usually I associate delirium with a fever. And this is my notes I put like, oh, he's a demisexual. I get it. Like he understands that she is making these sexual advances towards him. And he's like, no, not this way. And she goes,
But I don't know you yet.
Right. Not only do I not know you, but you know shit about me. Like what do you know? Who told you what? And she goes, "Let me be a fever from which you will never recover."
And that sounds creepy as hell.
Oh my god! Our night anarchy of pleasure. So she's, if she was saying this to Londo, he would die of like ecstasy. He would love to hear a woman say that to him. But
he's still in love with the other stripper.
Yeah, well, probably.
Well, not other stripper, but
probably a couple of them. But yeah, she reaches up to kiss Vir. It's the most awkward kiss ever on screen. Not the most awkward kiss. For the record, the most awkward kiss that I've seen on film is between Charles Dutton and Halle Berry in what's the name of that movie? It's like a horror movie that they were in together. Not Disturbia, was it? It was something like that. It was god awful. I never want to see. I don't like watching people kiss in the first place, but the way he kissed her face, it was like, I don't want to see. I won't be kissing is not cool anymore. Stop that. Anyway, Vir admits that this kiss was memorable. It was awkward and everything. And this is where she's like, everything should be done. Don't worry about it. We do switch and we see Zach outside of his uncomfortable uniform. He's wearing those. He has like a collar and a vest and all that stuff, right? Like the security team always does, which is kind of cool. He reports to CNC deck and he's like a little uncomfortable. He's like, "Hey, I don't really make it up here very often." And he's talking to Ivanova and he reports that there's an increase of Narn going through the transit station. And they're just kind of like, this is a little awkward. And then he shows, Ivanova's like, yeah, but look at the name. She goes, Abrahamo Liconi? Like, since when did that become a Centauri name? And so they're both just like, something's up. And then they're like, well, look whose office it went through. And they look at it and they're like, really? They know it's fake. And of course, us being the audience, we're like, well, whose name is it? Of course, it is Vir's name. So that information leads Ivanova to go to Vir. And this is where Vir is like, he confesses like, okay, yeah, I made this fake name. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to help the Narn. He invented someone, like he didn't have authority for himself to certify these transfers off world. So he invented a persona, someone who had more authority than him to sign all the paperwork. And it's like, well, we let him do it. And he knows that he's acting against the Centauri government for their harsh stance against the Narn. And so he created his own type of underground railroad using his position to smuggle Narns off of Centauri. He's using the work transfer program so that Narns are not going to Centauri work camps. They're just like leaving. And that's actually kind of a cool way to use your power. Like He knows of the Centauri. He knows Centauri law. He knows how to manipulate it. He's doing what Centauri do.
Yeah, he's using the evil for good, or he's using his smarts for good. He's doing it the Centauri way, basically.
Yeah. And I
This is the dream of everybody who wants to keep a system intact, and this is how you get, in position to be able to help instead of tearing the whole motherfucker down. And I'm gonna let y'all be great for 20 minutes and do this, and we'll talk again later.
But I will point out a couple things, because Vir works for Londo, who basically helped the quote unquote like the return to glory for the Centauri Empire. They're in the Imperial Core, even though he's on Babylon 5. They're helping the Empire, and you have kind of like this covert resistance group thwarting the will of the Empire. And the reason that they're even able to do it was because the Empire is so bloated and so over bureaucratized. They're not going to question anybody who has authority to do anything. They're just going to like, okay, well, the papers are signed. We're good. A parallel is kind of Andor, but not in a good way. In Andor, because of the bureaucracy, Cassian Andor ends up in prison, not for a heist that he pulled, but because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they had decided at that exact moment, now we're just going to give out more harsher punishments. It came from up top, so this is what we do now. Yeah. The date between Sheridan and Delenn, again, some cutesy stuff. Sheridan destroyed his kitchen trying to cook this flarn for that woman. And I got a lot of questions, because he's like, look, what I don't like, I'm not a culinary artist like Garibaldi. They only mentioned his name because he's not in this episode. But like what I lack in like cooking ability, I make up in portions. So he has a bunch of flarn. She tastes it, and he's like, oh, how is it? And she's just chewing on it, looking like she had eaten trash.
So like me, why not tell the truth? They was working off this distraction, like, oh, that painting is so nice, and trying to season it. Like, help this man out if he wants to learn to cook something. Like, okay, this bland pizza tofu is not the way. Let's go together and let me help you do this shit right, because I love that you want to cook for me, but I want you to do it right.
Yeah, maybe she appreciates it more than she appreciates the thought more than the actual food.
Oh,
because yeah, she didn't have to lie. He already said, "I can't cook." He knows he can't cook. Like, just if you gave him some pointers on what was bad about it, maybe he could improve.
I would just like to take a moment to kind of make an observation. Delenn was dousing her food with seasoning, and so it makes me think that 200 years in the future, people who share attributes to Commander Sheridan still don't know how to season food. And then I also wonder, is Minbari food like rich in seasoning? I'm really curious. Like, it makes me think, because they pray and meditate over the seasons, and they all mean different things. So is that stuff like fragrant? Does it like really strong in flavor? You know what I mean?
You know what? The way that they do their rituals with the seasonings is kind of similar to like Yoruba tradition,
Yeah.
where there's different herbs and seasonings for everything. So they probably are used to constantly having aromatics and flavors on their food.
Yeah. And that, in my mind, separates the Minbari from what the Vulcans are. The Vulcans take away anything that will like provoke emotion. I bet the Minbari, especially the religious caste, revel in enjoying flavor, like activating your senses. So now I'm a little, I wonder a little bit, like, how good is Minbari food? Yeah.
And I would be disappointed in Delenn because your first attempt at this relationship having any longevity is taking a L right now because you know that the kitchen is really important in your life. Like, don't let him come in half-assed thinking that it's gonna be okay. It's not. There is a standard that must be acquired, and either you are going to rise to it or pay a professional.
See, she has to teach him to listen to the ancestors. To
That
listen.
part. And they not that painted behind his head on the wall.
You know what else? With the whole ritual and tradition and stuff, when they had that other meal together,
Yeah.
and they would take a bite and then meditate, like the flavor in the food must have been strong for you to be able to just have 5 minutes in between each bite.
Boy, they dip it in pepper sauce. It's spicy. They need to take a little bit of time to let that spice wear off. Yeah.
Look, like they eating hot wings, so you gotta take a break in between.
So
I wonder why. Oh,
Well, babe, you don't have to worry. Me and my ancestors, we on speed dial because that potato soup in there, it's fire.
oh, I'm gonna get some. I can't wait. So we switch and we see that Vir and Lindisty are in the hallway walking, and Anarn pops out. He looks at Vir, is like, murderer. He pulls out a big sword and he's about to stab him. And Vir is like, no, but then he hops into action. Vir is not a coward. He like lunges for it, stops the attack, pushes the guy back. He gets thrown to the floor because he's not very strong. Remember, Narn are like super
Really
healing strong.
And he even told his fiance, "Get behind me." Like, come on. Yes, that part. Like, if somebody's gonna die, it's gonna be me first.
Right.
Love that, Vir. Good job.
And something happens. This I thought was a little weird. There's an APB that goes straight to Sheridan's quarters saying that there's an attack in progress and they need somebody, and he's like, "Whoop, gotta go." That's how they get out of the date. But I'm like, is there some new protocol or procedure that they just have this going over like all the loudspeakers of all of the officers? Because why does Sheridan have to respond to it?
oh, because Garibaldi's not in this.
Right, where's Garibaldi?
Vacation.
Maybe he did take that vacation. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
he went
But-
to Mars to go see his ex's and baby.
Oh God.
No, he
So Sheridan pops out and he stops the attack. They exchange blows. He punches the Narn, and Narn punches him back in the face like real hard and cuts his arm. And so they're like having a standoff face to face. And Zach pops out and he's like, "Stop everything you do and don't make us do it." And then the Narn yells Shankar as he lunges for it, and they shoot him. And I think it's Zach specifically that kills him. I'm gonna hold that as a little bit of a bookmark because I don't know why security always have to go for the kill.
Human police officers. That's what they're trained to do.
Right.
and they were trained by Garibaldi.
They were trained by Garibaldi. Like, no mercy.
Like, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
We don't have to investigate. We don't have to investigate if the person is dead. Less work for us.
Like, less paperwork somehow. So after the attack, they're doing an investigation, which Sheridan got cut open with that one. The attacker was a Narn, and what they speculate that the motivation was Shankar, which is a blood oath, which means revenge. And their whole thing is like, well, it's not just an attack, it's personal.
Mm-hmm.
And they, this Narn arrived on the station with his pouch brother, which, remember, they're marsupials. There is a pouch under there somewhere. And they're trying to figure out, like, okay, well, where's the other Narn? In the meantime, Lindsay is taking care of Vir's injuries, and she's talking about how brave and wonderful he is. And Vir is wondering, like, look, how come every time I show my face on Babylon 5, people want to punch it? And it's like, you're a Centauri. you have a very punchable face, especially with that peacock feather of a head you got.
Yikes.
Yeah. And she's like, you've been a hero enough today. And those are some key words that we should have paid attention to because they are a red flag.
Yep. And this is when I became irritated with her. And I already recognized, like Mel said, that she's love bombing, right? But like, if you gon' get a man, that was the way to do it. She was going in the right direction. And with that passionate kiss she laid on him being a demisexual, I was thinking that he would reject her, but he didn't. The kiss, landed and he was leaning into it. And it's like, well, maybe this won't be so bad, and was giving her a chance. This was the first flag where it was like, no, you got to get rid of her, Vir.
Yeah.
When he was trying to figure out, like, why is the Narn trying to kill me? I don't understand. And she's like, that's just how they are. And it was just a really simple thing that she said that, a lot of people don't really pay much attention to. But it's like, no, she is a whole problem out here.
She is a space racist.
Man, and just that little phrase, no, you out of here. She is fired. Get rid of this girl. She is a problem.
Right.
And he didn't say nothing. I'm just like, oh my God, Vir, you are failing at life right now.
Well, we know that Vir has a lot that he's trying to conceal. Right. We switch to see that Delenn is checking on Sheridan's injury, and she expresses concern for his recklessness. And I'm like, why do you care about his recklessness? The last captain of the station just went on these missions by themselves. And then a little bit of a spoiler, the last captain of the station is gonna continue to do that to his dying days. A couple episodes are coming up that I'm excited for. Sheridan said he felt obligated to help with the attack, and then their romantic connection is stronger and stronger. And then they're about to have a kiss, but Ivanova interrupts, like, look, something ain't right. That ain't the only Narn on the station ready to kill him. Not only that, there might be a reason that the Narn want to kill Vir. Ivanova uncovers the link between the dead Narn and Vir. She explains that Vir is involved in this underground railroad, but all the Narn that he signed off to get off world are reported as dead. They're all declared dead. So that's 2,000 Narn dead by Vir's hands. And they're like, what the heck is going on? Well, in the meantime, there's another Narn that is following Lindisty. She's like, she leaves Vir while, the senior staff is questioning him. She's by herself, just like bouncing around, la, la, la. It's crazy. Vir is explaining this to Ivanova and the crew. He's like, look, no, they're not dead. We're faking their deaths.
And it took a lot for him to say that. Like, he looked disturbed as the words was coming out of his mouth. He didn't want to have, that was a secret he was trying to keep.
Yeah.
He had to blurt it out.
Yeah. He had to.
And why they did that in front of, what's his name?
Londo.
I was like, no, Vir, why don't you pull the captain and so-and-so to the side and have this conversation?
Right.
Play dumb like you've been playing dumb. Play dumb in front of the emperor and shit, or whoever those politicians are. So why can't you play dumb one more time so you can have a private conversation? The hell?
It's probably harder for him with Londo, because Londo is who he has his trauma bond with. Like, he has to play face in front of him so much.
Yeah.
And he's probably scared of him, and the truth, he got stressed out, and the truth came out. Like, when you're in a situation where you have to be a certain way, that mask comes off when you get stressed out. It looked, he played it very well, as though he was having a fight or flight moment.
Yeah. And like, minutes before that, this is where Londo was like proud of Vir, like, oh, you've murdered 2,000 Narns, fantastic. And when he admits like they're not dead, Londo is like, well, you've just clearly abused your power. He's like, this is uncalled for behavior. Like, I would never. So wild.
Saving people's lives. How dare you?
Mollari goes, this scandal is gonna get out and it's gonna ruin my name. So I need to get ahead of this. And he's showing disappointment to Vir, which it's so funny how quick his tune changed. In the meantime, Lindsay, she's in the garden, while Vir is thinking about his actions. She is revealing her strong anti-Narn bigotry. She says they're lazy, they foul their own nests. And I'm like, you sound like a eugenicist. Yeah, she's a bigot, but like she sounds like a southerner in the United States, like just the lies that people, the racist tropes that people would say. Yeah, I wrote on my notes like, sounds very American to me. And what she does, she presents Vir with the Narn that followed behind her, and she's like, "I got one for you." Like, what?
And this instantly infuriates me because I didn't say this earlier. I knew you were giving a storyline, but when I watched the episode and that Narn attacked Vir and them, I was like, he could be trying to kill her. And he threw her behind him and he just kept coming, but didn't nobody check for understanding on who he was actually attacking. And for this bitch, oh my God, to allow herself, full-bodied and capable, to pretend like you needed protecting from a man when you were clearly like the better fighter. So how much do you really care about your future husband if you gonna let him, get murdered when you could have saved him? Oh my God, disgusting.
Because she's a girl and the men are supposed to protect us if they're around.
Yep.
I only know how to fight in case the dude is not there. It's social conditioning.
And
no, that was her allowing him to play a role.
yes.
Was okay with the fact that he died, and if he died, she wouldn't have cared.
Because it's the imperialism. It's like it's the social conditioning and roles of like the elite. Same thing. It's Londo basically. Londo's like, you're my best friend, but I gotta kill you because the old ways, the rules says so. And so he murders his best friend and blames Lord Rifa for it. It's like, you didn't have to like kill him. You didn't have to do that. But yes, she was trained as a fighter, but she's like a nationalist. If we want to leave it into those terms, she's ethnocentric and all that stuff. She's a eugenicist because remember she was talking about her father would help cull whole towns or whole villages to root out aggression, which that makes me sick because that happened to black people in the United States. It's like the aggressive ones, we can't really keep them around. We got to kill them. We got to keep the subservient ones, the obedient ones, because that's what we want. We're trying to breed a group of laborers who are obedient. And she would use the word. She would use like the words that people use to dehumanize people here. She used cullings, purification, cleansings. They don't say you just like straight up killed thousands of people. You cleaned the land, right?
The gaslighting.
Yeah. Like this is where the episode gets flipped up because we're focusing so much on what Vir's doing. Like the Underground Railroad and stuff, and we're thinking like, oh, maybe the Narn learned that those other Narn are dead and they're upset. And it turns out, no, they're mad at her because she is actually a murderer of thousands of Narns.
Yep. She even said that she had killed. I've done it hundreds of times. The first time or two, it kind of is difficult, but you'll get used to it. And I'm like, I've been telling you the whole episode to get rid of this bitch. Now you need to actually kill her. She's offering up the knife for you to kill the Narn. Here's your opportunity to show that you really stand with the Narn. Save this Narn off the floor in front of you right fucking now and kill her yourself. She's admitting to you that she's a mass murderer. And what does he do? Turns the other cheek. And there is no reason under the sun that anybody can give me right now, because he wasn't in threat. He didn't have his master Londo over him. The Imperial Court isn't in front of him. What nobody there to stop him from doing what was right. You get yourself in a place of power. You do the bare minimum crumbs of saving 2,000 of us when it's convenient for you. But when one of us is really right here, right now, tied up and laying on the floor and needing your fucking help, you don't come through. And at the end of the episode, for him to still even be considering marrying this bitch, you are not with us. You too are a threat, and you are not doing enough work. There are not enough Narns being saved by you for me to have any compassion for you at all, Vir. Whatever happens to him, I wouldn't give a fuck. He failed this mission. I'm complete.
I have kind of a different perspective on that. I'm with you for a lot of that, but also the Centauri Republic, the Empire itself is it crushes everybody. Even at the very top with whatever's going on with Lord Rifa, Emperor Cartagia, like all of them, if they slip up and do something that's like kind of off once, they get murdered. Like somebody's gonna poison their drink, which Lord Rifa got poisoned halfway. Wait, did I that happened last episode?
It was a couple episodes ago.
Okay, right. Sorry, I'm getting confused.
Londo poisoned him. Yeah.
So there's that, and it's the crushing weight of Empire itself. Vir, even though he has quote unquote position, he is a servant. He is subservient. It's kind of like your critique as far as he's using his position to work the system on the inside. He's probably content with that, like, oh, I'm doing something good. Somebody had to do something. It's the fact that the Centauri Republic exists at all that we're into this mess anyway.
Yes, you're making my point for me.
Hold on. Wait. I got you.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, even if he does anything in his power and is more forward, more overt, they'll just kill him. They'll just do to him what Londo did at the end anyways. Like, look, your position, we're just taking it away from you because you suck at it. We don't want you to do that no more. So he doesn't have the power to do anything anymore. The interesting thing though is like the conclusion at the end where they're like, nobody uncovered this Abrahamo Lincoln character. He's just a dude invented on paper. And so they're just like, why don't we just keep him in place? So it's just one of those things like bureaucracy. There are people who think like, oh, we can use the system to fight the system. You really can't. And there would have to be like a legit built internal resistance, which that's what Londo's friend was trying to do, that he got murdered for. If there was going to be a solution to the problem, and I know for a fact that the show is not going to do this, but the Centauri Republic has to collapse and burn. But J. Michael Straczynski is interested in redeeming these terrible people, so
thank you. Somebody finally admitted it. They're gonna try to redeem these racist, colonizing, genocidal maniacs. Oh my God, it's disgusting. And the fact that Vir might lose his life for the cause, you down with us or no? Because we losing our lives. So I would not be surprised if he got killed. Yeah. That's what happens. That's a potential.
I'm kind of interested, like, how down for a cause is he? And if we're going to get political, this makes me think about liberals in the United States. Like, Vir is only doing it because we know that he has like this rebellious attitude. He does have compassion, but at the same time, like if he never knew Narn, he probably wouldn't do anything. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think it's because of his proximity to the situation.
Yeah,
think
I
it's
was going to say, like you said, in a more societal perspective, from a personal perspective, like we heard from his father, where his father thought that this woman would be a good match for him or a match for their family. So, and he doesn't get along. We mentioned he doesn't get along with his family. He doesn't like his family.
Yeah.
They don't like him because he doesn't think like them, which tells me that he's been around this since birth. And he was probably, anytime he showed empathy, he showed his true self, the self that we wanted to come out of him, he was shut down. And he has all the characteristics of someone raised by a narcissist. And when someone's raised by a narcissist or just in a narcissistic relationship, just when working with Londo, your self-esteem is destroyed. You question yourself. It's anything that you do that you feel is right, your unconscious brain has been trained and controlled for so long to not do those things, even though you logically understand. Like these are things that people who go through trauma therapy need to work through. It's like someone who is obviously super smart, they can go out to places and other people see how smart they are as soon as they start talking, but they may feel that they're stupid because everyone they grew up around told them constantly, you're stupid, you're stupid, people are going to think you're stupid. So even when they go out and tell people tell them, "Oh, you are smart," they may not believe it. Or for a better example, someone who's pretty, like if they, people like Black people who grow up in white communities, some of them grow up thinking that they're not as pretty or as good looking as other people. And then maybe they get around a Black community and they're like, "Oh God, you're gorgeous." They're going to like consciously hear it and know it. And some of them even like become models and stuff. And then models are a good example. Some of them think that they're still ugly. Some of them think they're not good enough because somewhere along the line, whatever weird thing it is about them that made them perfect for modeling, like thin and skinny and tall, thin and skinny. What am I talking about? Like thin and tall. Like they got teased for it so much and now they're reveled for it and they still have issues with that. So I see Veer as he's struggling with that and it takes time. It takes a long, long time. People who grow up with thoughts of leaving this planet without a ship.
Yeah.
That's how I like to say it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you've lived like that for so long, those type of people have to retrain their brain not to think negatively about themselves. And Veer doesn't get that until he gets to Minbar. He's a grown adult. The first time he's ever seen any of this is either on Babylon 5 or Minbar. He's grown.
Yeah.
So he's spent at least 20 some years of his life, depending on the span of his species, being told that every good thing about him is wrong.
You know, that's a good point too. Like a way to look at this is it took him encountering people who were more like himself for him to take action. And granted, like we're all like, yeah, his action isn't enough. He needs to take more. But for him, it's a monumental and dangerous step because he is a singular person opposing an empire. And and he's using bureaucracy as a tool because that's what it is. So it could be something like given some time, but you know, if we looked at this particular situation, given some time, it could be something that can be organized into a full-on resistance. I mean,
Right.
if you've helped 2,000 Narn escape, those 2,000 can be radicalized into like action blocks. You've got an opportunity to build resistance out of that. I don't know what the Centauri believe though. Londo is basically saying that he called in all these favors to cover up what Vir did, and he points out that in the past envoys to Minbar have gone native. Do you know what that term means?
Yeah.
No.
So, okay. The British Empire during their early colonization days, what happens, people, explorers and all that stuff would go and meet with different tribes in the United States, what will become the United States, and in Africa. And then people was like, you know what? These people are living better than we are. I want to live among the people, among nature, and within
the people,
and along with and with nature, like in harmony. And people are like, oh, you've gone native. And it was a derogatory term to say that you've given up your privilege for living amongst the savages. Vir is not the only one, and this is kind of like my speculation as far as like who are the other people who have done that. It just makes me curious. They should definitely have gone in a little bit more. But Londo is talking about past patterns that Vir has. This is the first time he's caused trouble, allowing Mollari to blame it on moral influences, on the Minbari influences. He calls them anarchists.
Yeah.
And not go along with the way that he believes that a Centauri really should be.
They are technically anarchists from their perspective, because they do have a system where they kind of rule themselves. Even though they do have the gray, the concept of the gray is closer to the people running themselves than it is.
Yeah. The way to look at it is the gray is kind of like a municipal council. I don't know how they choose who's there, other than we know that, well, you'll find out that Delin is a part of the gray because her mentor had chosen her to replace him. So we're not fully sure how that works. So it's not sortition. It is some sort of council election, but we'll we can get into that. But also, like, he's using anarchist in a derogatory term, as in unruly people.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear the term unruly, I hear, oh, you must be extremely white. Like, I don't, like, who told you that I need someone to rule me? I don't need a master. I don't need a king. I don't need none of that. Anyway.
Down with the monarchy.
Yeah. And then Londo is like, you will continue your instruction on what it means to be in Centauri under me. And so Vir loses his role as a envoy to Minbar. He's like, you can't do that no more. Since we're removing you from that post, you're going back to Babylon 5. Your arranged marriage is going to be postponed because the family has to reconsider their decision because you don't have the same power you used to have 2 days ago.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing, but also like, oh, he doesn't have the same power. We have to reconsider this. In other words, this ain't gonna be so good for us anymore.
Like, one of the things that she said she knew about him was his position. Exactly. She didn't know nothing about him. Like, exactly. Well, I know this is your job.
Right. I heard you got an 8-figure job. I think we can be in love. Oh, you're down to 6 figures? I got to think about that. I don't know how much they get paid. Does Vir get paid? He has to.
Yeah, I think he gets paid.
Yeah. And Londo's like, look, this incident has to be kept completely quiet. We'll never speak out of it again. And this is how the writers get out of it. Vir is no longer involved in the Underground Railroad. He doesn't have to be Abraham Lincoln anymore. And we'll never talk about it again. As the show wraps up, Sheridan finds Ivanova on the station, and she is in his office doctoring a picture of him as a Centauri. Sheridan's like, what are you doing? And she explains, like, oh, I'm using your security clearances to do a little work. I'm like, how are you using his security clearances? I'm a little curious. Anyway, but what she says is like, since we got this Abrahamo Lincoln character that nobody seems to know anything about, like even Londo doesn't know about him, we're just going to keep him in place and we're just going to doctor him up. I added a photo, I added some things. We're going to keep them in place, and we're going to use it to free the Narn. And Sheridan's like, oh, well, how many Narn do you think we can sneak out? And she goes, I don't know, but if we can get one, it'll be a victory. And this is where she feels like she has a purpose. She's taken on a more altruistic purpose to use power to free people. And she doesn't know how effective it's going to be. She most likely will never see people who benefit from it. But because it is something that she is passionate about, she feels that she is fulfilling her purpose, and she's no longer aimless and out there in the universe.
Had their dreams about being naked. Yeah.
She says something like, "Oh, I like kind of being a sneak," and Sheridan's like, "Well, I appoint you sneak in residence. Now get the hell out of my office." We see that Lindesty is leaving. Vir apologizes to her for whatever reason, and she kisses him again, and she takes off, and we never see her again. And Vir acknowledges like their relationship would have inevitably faced challenges, which, you know, she's a cold-blooded space racist and he's not. Like, they're on opposite sides of the whole thing. He's trying to free the Narn, and she's like, no, we should kill them all. It's so wild. She's basically Londo as a woman.
Yeah.
And so we have the episode.
Oh my gosh, it was such a good episode. It got like my whole circulatory system activated. I am just, warm in this blizzard after watching this episode. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it was a pretty good episode. Like I said, it's not a filler. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's the character story oriented stuff that if it was given time to really develop, like let's say if this was on Netflix and they were able to do it and they still had 22 episodes, we'd probably get a few more like this. Mm-hmm. Like exploring what the characters actually do and how they're being affected by the bigger stories.
I like the concrete metaphors. Like some of the other metaphors that they've had, especially in season 1, were kind of very woo-woo-y, like because we're out in space, that's why. But these metaphors, like comparing Londo's perspective of other people or other species to him unnecessarily killing a bug with a sword.
Yeah.
And the way he yells at the overkill, like that's kind of it's sort of a metaphor for how he treats other people or his perspective of other people that wasn't so out there. Like it's out there to kill a bug with a sword.
Like the fact that he can in the first place is wild.
That was a pretty big insect though.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess he's good at stabbing things.
Yeah. Like, I'm too good to be dealing with this. Like, I've already talked to y'all 2 days ago. Come over here, get rid of this stuff. Even though all the reason why they can't run the station as efficiently as they would have, it's his fault.
Don't do that, Mel.
What?
Don't tell a white man that he caused a problem that now he's complaining about. That doesn't happen.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right, let's get out of here. I'm glad that y'all joined us in this episode of Voices of Hyperspace. The next couple of episodes are going to be pretty wild. There is one that I don't like so much, and that's the King Arthur one, which I really wish the 90s would not have done that so often, but whatever.
Oh, all right.
But yeah, whatever. And Garibaldi's in that one too. So if you want to keep up with the conversation and know everything that's going on with Voices of Hyperspace, you can follow, and share our YouTube channel at Voices of Hyperspace. Continue the conversation on our YouTube and join our TikTok and Instagram at Voices of Hyperspace. I'm Legendary Black Lion. You can follow me on Instagram at Legendary Black Lion. I'm also on Blue Sky. That's going to be great. That's all my socials.
I'm Captain Mel Asylum. You can find me at melsrebellion.com, where we are counting down to unrooting the system. You can also find me on Blue Sky. Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Sunday. You can find me at a poker table.
Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.